Here's exactly how I would learn Spanish if I were to start all over again. Yo soy Nate, he estado aprendiendo español por 10 años ya, mucho tiempo. And here's a little background on me. So I took 4 years of Spanish in high school. I started learning when I was 14. I was a TA my senior year. So for 5 days a week, I would actually sit in on a native Spanish speaker's class. I would correct their work. It was a great environment for me because I could listen to them speaking Spanish. I picked up on a lot of new words in that class. It was great. I was also a volunteer. I was a teacher at the International Language School for Children and Adults. And I would basically go there every Saturday morning. I would volunteer and I would teach adults ranging from 18 to 80 conversational Spanish. It was a lot of fun, helped me a lot with vocabulary. When I graduated high school, I was rewarded the California State Seal by Literacy, which is pretty cool. I also have been teaching on my website for more than 5 years now, Spanish with Nate. And if you didn't know, I live here in Mexico City, or La Ciudad de Mexico. And I put this here because it's kind of a funny story. Here in Mexico City, oftentimes people will call me Andres. So there are many people here in the city who actually know me by this name instead of Nate. And basically the funny story is because when I first moved here, almost 2 years ago now, I would go to the Starbucks and they would say, blah, 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 y tu nombre, and your name. And I would say, Nathan. And you're like, Nathan? Nate? They're like, And I would say Andres because my middle name is Andrew. So it just kind of made sense for me to do Andres. You could also say Nathan or Nathanael, but my full name actually isn't Nathaniel. So I figured Andres would be my new Mexican personality. Anyways, let's take a look. The number one thing I would focus on right from the get-go is the alphabet and pronunciation. It's incredible to me how many students of mine have really, really high levels of Spanish, but they don't have the best pronunciation. So I tell them, hey, you got to revisit the alphabet. It might sound simple and elementary, but if you just focus on those vowel sounds, your accent is going to become a million times better. So for example, A, E, I, O, U. If you can get those down, your accent is going to become way better. Next, I would honestly only use these two apps, which are Spanish Dict and ChatGPT. Both are free. The reason I put these instead of other apps or even talk about my own resources, because these are free. Spanish Dictionary is by far my favorite translator, and I've literally used it for the past 10 years now, and it's still my favorite resource when it comes to translating. They also have things like conjugation tables and whatnot. And in the modern day, ChatGPT is a fantastic way to have a conversation with a robot, essentially, and practice your Spanish, ask it questions. It really is a very powerful resource. Be careful with this because even though it is very good, it still makes mistakes, and I've noticed that it will make mistakes. So it's always good to fact check this. Next is don't avoid the grammar. So many students think, oh, I just want to be immersed. Oh, I just want to do comprehensible input and I don't want to look at the grammar. I get it. That sounds sexy. That sounds more fun. But listen, you're going to improve way faster if you just take 10 minutes, sit down and study some conjugation tables or study direct and indirect object pronouns or why we use por instead of para or para instead of por or ser versus estar. I get it. You can learn these things through immersion and comprehensible input, but here's a story for you. I had actually lived and studied in Spain for about 3 months. I went there in 2019. I already had a very good level of Spanish. And there were many of my peers who just figured, oh, I'm going to go to Spain. I'm going to be immersed. I'm going to have all this comprehensible input. And I'm going to end up speaking perfect Spanish. And boy, did they have a rude awakening when the teachers were only speaking to them in Spanish and they were completely lost. The thing is, you need to study the grammar, okay? Next. If I'm saving money on using free apps like Spanish Dict and ChatGPT, what I would do is spend some money for a tutor. I have a very small tutoring program where I typically only accept about 4 students every 2 months. And it's really cool because in our first session, we'll sit down and I'll say, okay, we're just gonna chat, get to know each other so you feel comfortable, and then we're gonna speak some basic Spanish for the next 20 to 30 minutes, okay? No matter how much we struggle. And within that very short time period, I can quickly pinpoint the most important things we need to work on, ultimately allowing the student to progress way faster. So if you're familiar with the Pareto principle, right, we can get 80% of our most important results by studying 20% of certain things like direct object pronouns, subjunctive, and so on, okay? So that would be hugely beneficial if you just sat down with someone one-on-one who can pinpoint the mistakes you're making, okay? If you're interested in doing private tutoring with me, you can send me an email at support@SpanishWithNate.com. I have very limited availability, but I do give private lessons. Next is to create physical flashcards. I don't know what it is, but there's something about creating physical flashcards that really, really helps you memorize new things. But I gotta say, there's something about writing something down which really helps you memorize things. While it maybe wasn't the most fun thing, it did help me improve my vocabulary massively. I also highly recommend that you just look up or you download. I have a free downloadable on my website of 500 of the most commonly used words. Download that and then just create physical flashcards. It'll help you a lot. Next is to listen way more. And it was about my third year of Spanish in high school when I really started to listen to a lot of music in Spanish. And boy, let me tell you, that improved my accent and vocabulary a ton. It was around this point where people started to say, hey, your accent's pretty good. You're actually doing a really great job with your Spanish. And I don't know if this ever happens to you, and it can be quite frustrating, is that you'll go to speak Spanish with someone and they'll switch to English with you. And it's very frustrating. One of the biggest reasons is because you haven't honed in your accent. And listening to audio in Spanish will really help you hone that accent. I have a link in the video description of my free playlist of personal songs in Spanish. I have literally 48 hours of music on that playlist. So I highly recommend you check it out. Next, to focus on a specific accent. Now, I didn't necessarily want to learn a specific accent when I was in high school, but I wish someone would have told me, hey Nate, you should focus on a specific accent. I always tell students, just choose an accent you really like or choose a culture that you really like. So for example, if you say, okay, I love Mexican culture, then focus on that accent because it becomes more fun to learn Spanish when you're actually excited about the culture and all the things that come along with it. When I first moved to Mexico City, my girlfriend said that I had a more norteño accent. I had a more northern accent. And a big reason for that is because, one, I was living in Southern California, and two, because I was listening to a lot of music from the north of Mexico. But that is key. Focus on a specific accent. Next, speak every day. This is number one, okay? This is literally the most important thing on this entire list. If you're gonna remember anything from this video, let it be this. Speak every day. It was 2020 when I started making YouTube videos of myself speaking in Spanish with people online. Guy speaks perfect Spanish. Wow, this guy speaks really great Spanish. And I look at those videos from almost 5 years ago now, and I say, wow, my Spanish was not very good. Rather, it's improved a lot, I'll say, okay? And the number one reason is because I was speaking every day. I was filming all these different kinds of videos. I was interacting with new different kinds of people, and it built my confidence, and it just massively improved my Spanish. Okay, so speak every day. Now, if you don't have people to speak Spanish with in your community, you can always go online. There's free apps like Tandem or Hello Talk, or also like a Discord community like we have on my website. But find people to speak Spanish with. Next is to find a community. Like I said, I wish I would have found other learners who were really interested in Spanish like I was. There was one student, Rajan, him and I loved hanging out with each other because he also really liked Spanish and he had a knack for it. So we had fun hanging out. But besides that, I didn't have a super strong community of Spanish learners behind me. And so I think I would have learned a lot faster if I had a community. So for example, I have plenty of students in my community who have literally helped students who say, if it weren't for this person, I don't think I would have improved nearly as much. Okay, so a community can be really, really helpful. Okay, and it's free. Next would be to focus on confidence versus perfection. If you're focusing too much on perfection, you're going to have trouble having conversations with people because you're going to be too nervous to talk to them. Your ego is going to hold you back, and you're just not going to want to make mistakes. Okay, but go in, focus on confidence, go slow, relax. You don't need to go fast, and just understand that you're going to make mistakes. I've been learning the language for 10 years now, and my Spanish is still not perfect, and I can always learn something new. You got to keep that growth mindset. Finally, we have comparison. Don't compare yourself to other people, okay? Don't compare yourself to me. Like I said, I've been learning Spanish for 10 years, so you might see me and say, wow, Nate has incredible Spanish. I want to be just like Nate. Amazing. I know you can do it, and I want to be that inspiration for you. But don't get caught up in the comparison trap and get down on yourself because that can be very discouraging and make you feel bad. Remember, everyone has their own journey and we all kind of latch on to different concepts and methods more than other students. So you might find that you feel that you improve more when you listen versus when you speak. Whereas in my experience, and especially with my students, I find that speaking tends to be the most useful, okay? But I'm the teacher. I should be a catalyst for you to go out and try to improve on your own. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to have a free 7-day course in the video description, it's awesome. I send you an email every day, and we have literally thousands of students who have taken this course, so make sure to check that out. Bueno, muchas gracias por ver el video. Espero que hayas aprendido algo nuevo y nos vemos pronto. Hasta luego.